Hello everyone, welcome to a new school week. So today we are starting with the new lecture number 3. We're starting with chapter 1, present tense, and the first lesson, present simple tense. This is Miss Maha Mohsen. So here is the table of content. First, we have an activity. We will talk about the rules, the forms, questions and negative forms, and we will do a practice and you have the solution. So the activity is for you to guess the rule. You have to read the following sentences and deduce the rules of the present simple tense. The first, number 1, we have A and B. A, we practice what we learn. B, the students practice what they learn. Number 2, A, Catherine wears a bracelet. B, she wears a bracelet. Number 3, A, Jane goes to school. B, he brushes his teeth. And C, she mixes the salad. Number 4, a person with low self-esteem bullies others. Number 5, he, she, it plays, etc. Number 6, A, I write notes in class, and B, you write your daily diaries. Now I want you to look at these sentences. For example, in number 1, you have A and B. So look at these together and compare between them. Number 2, the same. Number 3, between these 3 sentences. 4, 5, 6, 4 and 5 each alone. And 6, look at A and B together. And you have to deduce the rules for the present simple tense. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rules. Let's look at the first one together now. If you're an online student, I want you to pause this video and try to think of them on your own. And when you're done, continue the video to find out. So let's look at the first one together. We practice what we learn. Let me annotate and show you where I'm talking. So we practice what we learn. You can see here we have we in plural, practice the verb, what we learn. Here in part B, you have the students. So students, also plural, practice what they learn. So what can you deduce from these two examples in number 1? We and students practice what we or they learn. Look at the verb and deduce the rule. Look now at number 2, Catherine. It's a she, it's a girl, so she, the pronoun is she, wears a bracelet. So Catherine wears a bracelet or she wears a bracelet, the same verb because Catherine is a female and is singular, one person, and she is the pronoun that refers to Catherine, for example. Number 3, Jane goes to school. Jane goes. He, anyone, he brushes his teeth. She mixes. You can realize that in each of these verbs, we are adding es at the end. Goes, brushes, mixes. So I want you to think what was there before so that we added es. So what was the last letter or the last letters at the end of these words so that we added es? Think of that and deduce the rule. Number 4, a person with low self-esteem bullies others. A person, one person with low self-esteem bullies others. Like he bullies, she bullies. So bullies other, you can see that we have IES at the end. So what is the origin of this word? It is, let me type it, 1 second. It is bully. So bully ends with a Y, and here we added IES because it ended with a Y. and IES because it's here singular. One person, a person, okay? So also look at it and deduce the rule. Now look at the fifth one, he or she or it plays, blah, blah, blah. I did not finish the sentence, it doesn't matter. Here we're focusing on the subject and the verb. So he or she or it, this applies for the same three here. Plays, he, she, it, plays. Let me annotate. He, she, it, plays. He, one person, she, one person, it, one also singular, plays. Now look at number 6. I write notes in class. I write. Or you write your daily diaries. I write, you write. So I and you, and in both of them, we have write, not writes. He writes, she writes, or plays. But I and you write. So take some time and deduce the rules. Now I will be removing all the annotation and we'll be moving to the next slide. Hold on. Okay, so here is the next slide. And here you have the rules. These are the rules that I wanted you to deduce from the previous activity. So the first rule is the following: verbs in the simple present verbs in the simple present used with plural nouns or with pronouns, we, they, you, have to have no special endings. For example, we, they, or you practice what, blah, blah, blah. So we practice. Not practices, we practice. So there is no special ending. The word is the same, the verb is the same, because it's a plural. It's either a plural noun, like students, or pronoun, like we, they, and you. Verbs, this is rule number two, verbs in the simple present tense used with singular nouns or pronouns like he, she, it, and with s, like he wears a bracelet or she wears a bracelet. Catherine wears a bracelet. So either it's a singular noun or pronoun. The verb must end with an s, wears, for example. The rule number 3, we add es to simple present verbs that end with o, sh, double s, ch, x, and z if the subject is a singular noun or pronoun. Singular noun like Catherine, like Jane, or pronoun like he, she, it. So we add es if the word, like the verb, ends with one of these letters. For example, Jane goes. So the origin of goes, it is go. And because Jane is a singular noun, singular, not so like not two people or three people, one person, Jane, and it's a noun. So go becomes goes. We add es. He brushes, not brush, he brushes. They brush, he brushes. Or she mixes the salad. He misses our days. So I want you to look here. Goes, the original word go ends with an O. Brushes, brush ends with SH. Mixes, mix ends with X. Misses, miss ends with double S. So whenever the verb ends with either O, SH, X, double S, CH, or Z, and the noun is singular or pronoun, like he, she, it, we add ES. You can see here, we added ES. Now the fourth rule, if the simple present verb ends with Y preceded by a consonant, we change Y to I and then add es. For example, bully becomes bullies. So bully ends with y, and the y is preceded with a consonant, which is the letter L. Study ends with y and preceded with a consonant. Let me write it for you. It's preceded with a consonant, which is L and D and R, like hurry. It ends with Y and preceded with R. That's why we remove the Y and we add IES, and it becomes hurries, studies, bullies. But on the other hand, play stays plays, play. So it ends with Y, and Y, the letter Y is preceded with a vowel letter, which is A. That is why play, we just add S, not IES, because the Y is preceded with a vowel letter. However, bully, study, hurry, the Y is preceded with a consonant letter. That's why we remove the Y and we add IES. This is the fourth rule. Now, the fifth rule, if the simple present verb ends with Y preceded by a vowel letter, I was just saying that, we only add S if the subject is singular or a pronoun, which is he, she, it. So let me type this. If it's he or she or it, plays. However, if it is they play. So they play, but he, she, it, or the cat plays. So either it or the cat is a singular noun or a singular subject, and it is a singular pronoun, and plays, Y, the letter Y is preceded with the vowel letter. That's why we're just adding S. Now the last rule is number 6, verbs in the present simple used with I and you have no special endings, like I write, you write, no special endings. So write, not writes, or not IES, no special endings, and it stays the same. These are the 6 rules for the present simple tense. Now I'll be removing the annotations and moving to the second slide. So what are the uses? Read the following sentences, then underline the subject and the verb and deduce. I want you in this activity to deduce the uses of the simple present tense. So when do we use simple present tense? Look at the first sentence. Self-confidence is a necessary survival trait. Number 2, we usually spend summertime in the mountains. Number 3, Emma believes in her ability to succeed at her new job. Number 4, the temperature reaches 35 degrees Celsius in this town during summer. Number 5, our plane leaves to Madrid at 10 a.m. Number 6, when you arrive at the beach, comma, please send me a message. And of course, complete sentences, they all must end with a point, and every new sentence must begin with a capital letter. So if you are an online student, also pause this video and think of these sentences where we used in all of these sentences the present simple tense. So deduce from every sentence when or why we use present simple tense. Now on this slide, you have the uses. In the first sentence, self-confidence is a necessary survival trait. This is a general fact. So when we are giving a general fact, we use the present simple tense. The second one, we usually spend summertime in the mountains. This is a habitual action. Usually spend summertime in the mountains, habitual, like a habit, or we usually brush our teeth in the morning. Emma believes in her ability to succeed at her new job. This is an opinion. So also in opinions, we use the present simple tense. For example, we say, I believe, not I believed, I believed. The temperature reaches 35 degrees Celsius in this town during summer. This is a fact, a scientific fact. So also in scientific facts, we use present simple tense. Our plane leaves to Madrid at 10 a.m. This is scheduled future action. For example, let's say someone asks you, when does your father arrive from his work? You say he arrives at blah, 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 at 6 p.m. He arrives, not he arrive or arrived, he arrives. Okay, so this is a scheduled future action. And number 6, when you arrive at the beach, please send me a message. This is in a time clause. So when you arrive, time clause, when you arrive, not when you arrived. Okay, when you arrive, please send me a message. Or when you receive my email, please confirm that you received it. So the present simple is used to, as we were saying, express habitual actions, a habit, a general or scientific fact, an opinion, scheduled future actions, and in a time clause. So in these cases, we use the present simple tense. Now, what is the form of the simple present tense? You remember in the table I gave you an example. I just wrote the subject and the verb. I did not continue the sentence because I was telling you that our focus here is to look at the subject and the verb to study or to learn about the simple present tense. So this is the form. The simple present tense must have a subject and a verb. The form is subject verb. So for example, an introvert person avoids social gatherings. You know what introvert means? Introvert person, now it's self-explained here in the sentence, like they avoid social gatherings. So introverts usually don't like to interact so much with people. They like to spend time a lot. They don't like to go in so many different activities or try new things. So I'm just explaining the word to you so that you understand what we're talking about. So an introvert person avoids social gatherings. The subject is the introvert person, an introvert person. The verb is that avoids. He avoids or she avoids. That person, singular subject, avoids, so we added S. In the other example, they avoid, so here avoids, here avoid, no S because it's plural, plural pronoun. So they avoid going to the mountains during winter for safety reasons. The subject is they and the verb is avoid. So what is the rule that we can deduce? We deduce that with third person subject pronouns, he, she, it, you know that it's a third person. He, she, it, we add S, ES, or IES depending on the ending, okay? Depending on the ending. With the other subject pronouns, which are I, you, we, they, the verb remains the same. Like I avoid, you avoid, we avoid, they avoid. Now, what are the frequency adverbs? The frequency adverbs are like always, frequently, usually, often, sometimes, rarely, seldom, occasionally, scarcely, never, etc. All of these are examples of frequency adverbs. They are used with the simple present tense. So sometimes they are used with the simple present tense, and we had an example before in a sentence that where we had usually. For example, they often, oh, okay, before talking about examples, also they often come before the action verb, but after the verb to be. So for example, if I want to say, she usually eats breakfast before she goes to school. She usually, let me annotate and show you. She usually, so here is the frequency adverb. And here is the verb, eats. Now eats, of course, ends with S because it's a singular subject. We have the pronoun here, she usually eats. So don't say she eats usually, she usually eats. So the rule here is that usually comes before. So it's coming before the verb. So the frequency adverb usually is written before the action verb eats. Let's look at the other example. She is usually late for work. So here we have verb to be, is, usually. So we don't say she usually is. We say she usually eats, but we say she is usually. So when we have verb to be like is, are, the frequency adverb becomes or comes after the verb to be. So you have to study this rule. Usually comes before the verb, like eats, usually eats, and after the verb to be, like she is usually late for work. Now let me remove the annotations. And move to the next slide. Here we're going to talk about the questions and negative forms. First, we have affirmative, and then negative, and then a question. So what is the affirmative sentence? For example, Jen participates in the school play every year. Let me also emphasize that again, Jen, one person, singular, participates, ending with S or ES, depending on the word, in the school play every year. If you want to make it negative, we say Jen does not participate in the school play every year. Jen does not participate. So we remove the S. You can see here, we remove the S because here we have does not. So Jen does not participate in the school play every year. If we want to ask it as a question, we say, does Jen participate in the school every year? So also we remove the S because we have does, and here does starts at the beginning of the sentence. We start the sentence with does. Does Jen participate in the school play every year? Of course, question mark at the end. So notice how we add, we added very do to make the negative and question forms of the sentence. The verb, let's look at the second example. Affirmative, Jake is a self-confident person. So Jake is a self-confident person. The negative form, Jake is not a self-confident person. The question, we start with the verb, is Jake a self-confident person? Is Jake a self-confident person? The answer would be Jake is a self-confident person, or it would be negative, no, Jake is not a self-confident person. And the question ends with a question mark. The sentence ends with a point, and they all start with a capital letter. I want to emphasize this because you made so many mistakes in your writing with these issues. So here we don't add verb do because we already have a helping verb is. So what can you realize from these examples? Here we added the verb do, for example, does, because we had the verb here, the action verb, but here we had is. That's why we used is. We didn't add the verb do. Let's look at the second slide now. So what are the rules that you can deduce? When we do not have a helping verb like is and are, we add the verb do to make the affirmative and negative forms of the sentence. When we have a helping verb like is, are, have, has, am, etc. We use that verb and we do not add the verb do. We're moving to the next slide. So here we have practice to do. You have to put the verbs between brackets into the present simple tense. The plane arrive, of course, this is the word and you have to put it in the present simple tense at 6:30. I will phone you when he come. Of course, you also have to put it in the present simple tense. Back, unless we start now, we can't be there on time. The sun rise in the east. The next term begin on Monday. Of course, these are not the answers. You have to write them. She, verb to be, an engineer. They, verb to be, our relatives. When does the train depart? You have to also write it in the present simple tense. Let's wait till he finish his work. Please ring me up as soon as he arrives. So also take some time, look at them, solve them, and then you will have the answers. So here are the answers. The plane arrives at 6:30. The plane arrives. I will phone you when he comes. When he comes. Unless we start now, we can't be there on time. So start didn't change because it's we, plural. The sun rises in the east. The sun, singular, rises in the east. The next term begins because also the term, not terms, the next term, singular, begins. We added an S. She is because she, singular, so the verb to be would be is. She is an engineer. They are, because they is plural, so the verb to be would be are. They are our relatives. When does the train depart? We didn't say departs because we said we have does here. When does the train depart? The answer would be the train departs at blah, blah, blah. Let's wait till he finishes his work because he, it's a singular. And please ring me up as soon as he arrives. Also, he arrives. We added S. Also here you have a practice on the affirmative, negative, and the question. So the affirmative sentence, for example, Paul and Mark come back home together. So what is the negative and what would the question be? The second one, you have the negative, you have to write the affirmative and the question. Mrs. Davis doesn't work in an office. And the third one, you have the question, you have to write its negative and affirmative sentences. These, of course, would be the answers of this question. Do you usually solve your homework after school? Question mark. So let's look at the answers. Paul and Mark come back home together. Paul and Mark don't or do not come back home together. Why did we write don't or do not and not does not? Because it's in the plural. Paul and Mark, two persons, don't come back home together. The question would be, as we said before, we remove not because it's not negative anymore, it's a question. We move the do to the beginning of the sentence. So do Paul and Mark come back home together? The second example, Mrs. Davis doesn't work in an office. The affirmative would be Mrs. Davis works in an office. So here it's doesn't. We remove the does and the not. And of course, we add S to the verb. Oops. And the question would be, does Mrs. Davis work in an office? We start the question with does. And does because Mrs. Davis is a singular, one person, so does. Here it's a plural, do, okay? You usually solve your homework after school. You usually don't solve your homework after school. Don't because it's you, okay? And not because it's negative. The question would be, do you usually solve your homework after school? Okay, so I hope everything's clear. If you have any question, you can ask me. Here is my email. Thank you. Have a nice day.